Hello, this is Angelia, and you are watching or listening to the podcast, Why You Do What You Do. The podcast that talks about human development and psychology to kind of teach you a little bit more about why you do what you do. And last time we were talking about treatment techniques for, troubled kids, and we were talking about family therapy, and now we're going to start talking about behavior therapy. Behavior therapy, or behavior modification, is a form of psychotherapy that uses principles of learning theory to eliminate undesirable behaviors, such as temper tantrums, or to develop desirable ones, such as putting away toys after play. So see, it doesn't have to be a big battle. You can get help with these things because every kid's got some kind of problem. No one gets through childhood unscathed. Growing up's hard. In the latter example, every time the child puts toys away, she or he gets a reward, such as praise, a treat, or a token to be exchanged for a new toy. Like I said, we had the chore chart, and we had, the tallies. You got a good tally for doing the good thing, and you get a bad tally for doing the bad thing. And the reward was, the amount of money you got for your allowance, which was, teaching them in the adult world, you're going to get paid, and the better job you do, you're going to get paid more. So, it is a tool that works. A statistical analysis of many studies found that, in general, psychotherapy is effective with children and adolescents, especially with adolescent girls. So psychotherapy is effective in kids and teenage, it says especially girls, but it's also effective in boys. But girls, because we mature faster, on average 3 years faster than the boys do, we're a little more astute and can get it a little quicker than the boys can. No offense, boys. That's just a biological fact. Behavior therapy was more effective than non-behavioral methods. So behavior therapy works better than punishment. So keep that in mind. If your kid's having some problems, punishment might not be the answer. They might need to go get some help. You might need some ideas, because we don't know everything. We don't come into the world knowing it all. And you might need to get some ideas from a professional, child development therapist to help you raise this child, And there's no shame in that. So you shouldn't be ashamed of it. You shouldn't be scared of it. You should do what's best, for your child and your family. Results are best when treatment was targeted to specific problems and desired outcomes. Because, like I said, just ostracizing the kid, punish the kid, or whatever, that really doesn't teach them anything. And children learn best when they're being taught. Because, again, harsh punishments, being in the authoritarian, what that teaches the kid is that you're bigger than them and you're going to be mean to get them to do what you want. That doesn't teach them the reasons why. And, that's all kids, why. And because I said so doesn't cut the mustard. It doesn't. Sorry. You might have heard that from the parents, grandparents, whoever. It doesn't work. That just makes them feel like, when you teach them why, they understand. And they realize you're trying to help them out. It's like I was criticized and someone said that I wanted my children to be my friends. No, it wasn't about them being my friends. I want them to understand the reasons why they shouldn't do a thing. That was more important to me, than being the ultimate authority. Because I didn't care, about that. I was the boss. I didn't have to prove that I was the boss. I knew. Mom is in charge. I don't have to prove that I'm in charge to you. The facts are I am. So I don't have to be the authoritarian. But I wanted you to know why what you're doing was wrong. And I want you to know the possible outcomes of what could happen if you continue down this path. So that's more important, than being the right authoritarian parent, Sorry, facts are. To assess developmental problems, therapists may observe a young child in unstructured play with materials appropriate to the child's developmental level. And what they're doing is they're watching to see what the child's doing while they're playing, how they're playing. And that way they can gauge, where the child is in development. They can gauge the social, ability of the child, and what's going on in the kid's mind. What's he thinking about? Like I said, people's actions. If you study psychology, people's actions will tell you a lot more than they think you're telling. They think they're not telling you as much as they are. And again, my brain, don't have a stroke, because then your tongue is like saying stuff stupid. You know what I'm saying, hopefully. A team member may be assigned to play with the child, so the child may be observed in social and communicative interactions. Like I said, that way they get some feedback. They know what the child's thinking about. They know where the child's developmental level is and how they relate to others. How they are socially. Play therapy, in which a child plays freely while a therapist occasionally comments, asks questions, or makes suggestions, has proven effective with a variety of emotional, cognitive, and social problems, especially when consultation with parents or other close family members is part of the process. Now, I did play therapy when I was in elementary school, because I told a teacher some things. The teacher sent me to the counselor. The counselor's like, "Is this true?" I said yes. They wanted me in play therapy to show exactly what happened. Well, my mother was contacted. My parents were divorced at the time. My mother said, "That's absolutely not true. She lies. That didn't happen at all. She just wants the attention." So the counselor said to me the next time we met, "I don't know if your mom's telling the truth or you're telling the truth, but because you told me this, then there's clearly a problem, somewhere. So even if it's not true, I want to keep seeing you twice a week." And so I went to the counselor twice a week without, my mother's permission, so that they could feel me out on some things, because she said, I don't want to get it wrong. Okay, I have returned. That call was my father checking on my husband. So, when children have limited verbal and conceptual skills, or have suffered emotional trauma, art therapy can help them express or describe what is troubling them without having to put their feelings into words. And like I said, my counselor, she said she didn't want to get it wrong. If something had happened, she wanted to help me, but she admitted I wasn't there. I don't know if you're telling the truth or your mom's telling the truth. I was telling the truth. But she didn't want to get it wrong. So she went ahead and did some play therapy and art therapy with me, and we talked about a lot of different things. So it did help. The child may express deep emotion through choice of colors and subjects to depict. And a lot of the common colors could be red or black if the child is angry or upset or sad or feel like things are not in a great place right now. And they'll draw things that upset them. In family therapy, observing how a family plans, carries out, and then discusses an art project can reveal patterns of family interactions. So, when they suggest you do a thing together, yeah, they're wanting to see how you work together, how you relate to the kids, so, it's all relative. It really is. Family members often speak more freely through such a shared activity, and that can be even without words. It can be body language. So the goal there is to help the kid. So if you want to help your child, allow this therapy, because it's only going to help them, and it might even help you a little bit. The use of drug therapy to treat children, childhood emotional disorders greatly increased during the 1900s, often in combination with one or more forms of psychotherapy. So drug therapy can work for kids, but it also should be, in combination with psychotherapy, because usually kids can benefit from drugs, but they really need to talk things out with an understanding adult who can help them by shedding some insight on, what they're thinking about. Whereas normal adults, we might be in a situation where we're just depressed or anxious or whatever, that, talking about it, may or may not help. It just depends. But, the drug itself can actually lessen the symptoms of, the depression and anxiety. Antidepressants are commonly prescribed for depression and antipsychotics for severe psychological problems. And remember, we read earlier that it's rare a child has severe psychological problems, but it does happen. And like I said, you should want to help your child or your grandchild or the student or whoever. So there should be no shame in taking them if they're having problems to get that sorted out. Like I said, if you thought your kid was possessed, you might send him to a priest. If you thought your kid was sick, you would take him to the doctor. So if your child is having mental and emotional problems, you might want to take them to a therapist that can help with that. Sorry about that. And that call was the pharmacy letting us know that my husband's medication was in. So I've had a busy phone day today. Stimulants such as methylphenidate or Ritalin to treat ADHD, and the use of serotonin selective reuptake inhibitors or SSRIs to treat obsessive compulsive, depressive, and anxiety disorders. So these are a thing that kids can have, and these drugs do help them regulate these things. And like I said, it's not that big a deal if your kid has these things, because people do. We just have these things, and it helps, to get it treated. You have to excuse my maneuvering here. Every time I get up to answer the phone, I sit back down in a different position. So, I gotta recenter myself. That's kind of silly, but it is what it is, right? A randomly controlled trial found fluoxetine or Prozac, the most popular of the SSRIs, superior to placebos. So Prozac works better than nothing, and that's something that a lot of people are on, is the Prozac. If it's gonna help, just why not let it help? It is safer and has more tolerable side effects than other classes of drugs, so it's a good choice for most people. Prozac can produce sleep disturbances and behavioral changes, and the long-term effects are unknown. So there are side effects to every drug and every food you eat and everything you drink. There can be side effects. Everything that touches your body, you can get a rash. Everything can have side effects, but for the most part, not. So, don't let that discourage you from taking any drugs that can help you, because there are side effects. Because by law, they have to note that X amount of people had these side effects, and that has to be added to the label. But that doesn't mean it's going to affect everyone like that. It means someone actually had it happen. So, don't let that discourage you. There also is concern that SSRIs may be used instead of psychological therapies rather than along with them, because there are doctors who are pill pushers. They might say, oh, if I give them this pill, they'll be fine. And really, psychotherapy can help you much more than drugs can, because you learn your own mind, you learn why you have the emotions that you're having, and you can sort that all out, and the drugs can help. Now, I was on depression and anxiety drugs for 6 months, because something bad happened in my life, and I had thought about killing myself. And so I was on these drugs, and they helped. They got me through it. And I also was talking to a counselor at the time. And again, understandably, when there's a traumatic event or the death of a loved one or something, this can affect you. And it helps, if you get the proper treatment, rather than let yourself suffer and end up, making a mistake that could end your life. Stress is a response to physical or psychological demands on a person. So, stress comes from something that is not a normal demand of your life, because a normal demand of your life does not cause any stress. You're expecting it. It's something that you do every day. It doesn't stress you out. Stressful is something different. Something different happened that caused your fight or flight response to kick in, and now you're like, I'm stressed. So it just happens. Like I said, we like our little homeostasis. We like to be where we're always at. We like to be comfortable. Excuse me. Stressful events or stressors are a part of childhood, and most young people learn to cope. And that's true. If you think about all the things you had to go through or learn when you were a child, childhood is very stressful. You had to learn how to walk. You had to learn how to talk. You had to learn how to do everything for yourself. You had to go off and meet other kids, and either at the playground or kindergarten or whatever. You had to go to school and learn stuff that you didn't know and be exposed to other kids, teachers, other staff. So being a kid just by itself can be very stressful. So cut your kids a break. Realize that it's not easy growing up, and give them a break. Stress that becomes overwhelming, however, can lead to psychological problems, and that's true. And they have, a scale that when they talk to people about, your things that have happened to you, and they have a scale and the rating. And I filled one out, and actually there were only 2 things on that scale that I could not check. I could check the rest of them. So my rating was pretty high. But when you live through trauma, you will either get stronger or you will not. And that outcome can be very bad. I have had family members, I have had people I know in life who chose to not go through that pain anymore. They chose to stop their life and not go through any more pain. They didn't want to do it anymore. And that's a shame, because, people can contribute something. I knew some people, and these were good people, but they had been through horrible things, and so they didn't want to live with that anymore. They didn't want to. And that's a shame. And they were getting, some help, but clearly not enough, and even though it is a choice, I feel like if they had gotten proper, help, they would have made different, better choices. So, when you go through a traumatic event like abuse, neglect, assault, that is a above and beyond stressor. That's one of those 4-alarm fire stressors that can stick with you and cause you to have post-traumatic stress disorder. Severe stressors such as kidnapping or child abuse, or dramatically destructive acts such as school shootings or the attack on the World Trade Centers, may have long-term effects on physical and psychological well-being. And well, we just talked about that. It sure can. Yet some individuals show remarkable resilience in surviving such ordeals. And that's true too. Some people can come through things, and be resilient and bounce back and it be fine. And other people can have problems for the rest of their life. It just depends. The child psychologist David Elkind has called today's child the hurried child. He warns that the pressures of modern life are forcing children to grow up too soon and are making their childhood too stressful, because parents, sometimes don't want to deal with the kid. They want the kid to grow up, hurry up and grow up, so I don't have to deal with you anymore. And that's a shame, but that can certainly make the child's life more stressful. Alright. He warns that the pressures of modern life are forcing children to grow up too soon and are making their childhood too stressful. Because we're not meant to just grow up all at once and, get better at stuff or whatever. We're meant to navigate our childhood, learn the lessons we need to learn, and become adults. You can't force that too fast, or because the child is not mentally and emotionally ready. So what you do is you're stressing the kid out, like, why? I feel like they think I should know this. I don't, and you're stressing your kid out, and then your kid, has anxiety problems, that's why, a lot of people are, well, why is my kid like this? Well, take a look in the mirror. Today's children are expected to succeed in school, to compete in sports, and to meet parents' emotional needs, which is a shame because that's not something that should ever happen. But that happens in families. If their parents' emotional needs weren't met by their parents, then they might feel their children need to meet their emotional needs. I know a person who's like that, and I can't stand it, and I hate to use the word a hater for it, but I kind of do. No child is responsible for the parent's happiness. You're responsible for your own happiness. And if you can't make that, then you need to go talk to somebody about it. That child should not be meeting your emotional needs. Your job is to meet their emotional needs so they can grow up and be, a functional, decent person. Children are exposed to many adult problems on television and in real life before they have mastered the problems of childhood. So these children are watching TV or seeing what's going on in the parents' lives, and they'll be exposed to adult situations that their little mind and heart are not ready for. And so this is causing them trauma and stress. I've heard especially men say, grow up, deal with it, And I just, of course, wish I was a big 7-foot tall man. I could punch him in the face and knock him out. But since I'm not, I don't. But, that's wrong. That is 100% wrong to tell your kid, because that's telling them there's something wrong with them, that they're not maturing like they should be. And that's not true. What they are is a child being faced with, situations that are too much for their little mind and heart, and they shouldn't have to be dealing with anyway. So, never say that to your child. They know about sex and violence, and they often must shoulder adult responsibilities, such as, babysitting the younger kids or whatever, feeding them, bathing them, changing their diapers. Children should not be put in adult roles. Now, I know in some more distant past and in some parts of the world still, older children are expected to care for younger children. But what you're doing is you're robbing them of their childhood. They should be allowed to be a child and have a childhood, because that's how you navigate the world and you grow up and mature. And if you stop that process at any point, interrupt it, then you've screwed up this person, and they're going to have to catch up later on. And that's a shame. Many children move frequently and have to change schools and leave old friends. And of course, that's stressful. Anytime you have to pack up all your stuff and go somewhere else, that's stressful. And anytime you have to leave your friends at school and go to another school and you're the new kid, and that's stressful too. Yet children are not small adults. No, they're not. You can speak to them on your level, like they are an understanding person, but they're not adults, and they should be protected from adult situations and adult content and material that are not for children. They feel and think like children, and they need the years of childhood for healthy development. So your child has to develop physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually later on. That's their choice. But they need that childhood to process all these milestones to get there. They're not little adults. They're not, just born. And, that's a mistake that, has happened in my family where, you're assumed to be a little adult and you better act like one, and that's not realistic. Given how much stress children are exposed to, it should not be surprising that they worry a lot. And I went to school with kids who I know have anxiety looking back, because they were like all nervous, biting all their nails off, and I'm afraid of this, I'm afraid of that, and that's a terrible way for a child to have to feel. A child should be enjoying life, growing, learning. That's your job, to provide that for them. Anxiety in childhood has increased greatly. Fears of danger and death are the most consistent fears in children at all ages. Isn't that a shame that society's gotten to the point where kids are afraid of getting hurt or being killed? These findings have been corroborated in a wide range of developed societies, including Australia, the United Kingdom, Israel, Italy, and Northern Ireland, as well as the United States. So this has become a world problem, not just this problem here in the United States. Poor children, who may see their environment as threatening, tend to be more fearful than children of higher economic status. And that's because where are the most shootings going on? The poor neighborhoods. Where is the most gangbang going on? The poor neighborhoods. So, naturally, these children are having a lot more stress in their lives growing up. In a survey and interviews of 272 ethnically diverse 2nd through 6th graders in a large U.S. metropolitan area, school emerged as one of the children's chief concerns. So even though all this is going on, they're still worried about school. They still would like to do well in school. So did health, their own and someone else's. So they're worried about how they're going to be healthy and how maybe their parents or grandparents, whoever's bringing them up, whether they're going to stay healthy. However, the worry reported by the largest number of children, 56% of the sample, was personal harm from others. So they're worried about somebody hurting them. This included being robbed, stabbed, or shot. So clearly this is something going on in their environment, so it's traumatized them to the point where they're afraid that this might happen to them or someone they love. These children were not in a high crime area, nor had they personally experienced many attacks. Because you don't have to personally experience it to be afraid of it. If you see on the news it's going on out there in the world, or if you hear your parents talking about it going on in this, that, or other neighborhood, you're going to be worried about it. Their intense anxiety about their safety seemed to reflect the high rates of crime and violence in the larger society, even including killings in schools. Because, that's all over the news. And, I let my kids play during the news. My father wanted me to watch the news. I didn't think that was cool for my kids. We were eating dinner or whatever, and they could play. They didn't have to watch it, because even though I think it's good for them to know what's going on in the world, by that same token, it's not always good for them to know what's going on in the world, because it can traumatize them. And then if they get a little upset or whatever and have questions, talk to them about it. Explain it, work through it. Don't just let them hang and say, what do you know, you're a kid, or grow up, or whatever. No, it's your job to help them learn and grow. That's your job. People died in school shootings in the United States. 68% of them were students. So in the school shootings, they know most of the kids are the ones who get shot. Some parents, visiting, I think in one school, teachers, a principal, I think in one school, but most of the time it's the kids. So that might be a worry. It's like, oh, if someone comes in here, they might shoot me, So that's something to talk to them about. It's like, oh, well, your school has these, ways of dealing with this. They have this program. They have the guard at the door. Talk to them about it. Ease their fears. Make them as rational as they can possibly be. How did children in the New York City react to the terrorist attack on the World Trade Center on September 11, 2001? According to a survey of 8,266 4th through 12th graders in 94 public schools, an estimated 10.5%, or 75,000 children, showed symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. And that probably goes for the adults in the area too, because that was horrific, and thousands of people died. There was a cloud of ash and smoke over the area for a long time. So this is something that has traumatized the people, especially the children of New York. They made that movie, Incredibly Close, Incredibly Loud, I think it's called, to talk about this situation that traumatized the country. Symptoms included trouble sleeping, chronic nightmares, shortened attention spans, and obsessively thinking about the attack or trying not to think, hear, or talk about it, which, was hard to do because it was all over the news and all over the TV. 15% experienced agoraphobia, a fear of public places. And that, I've had that in the past. I didn't want to leave my house. And there were people who did that. They did not want to leave because they were afraid of what was, going on. If there's like these terrorists here, then they could be right here out on the street, and what's going to happen? So that's where I'm going to leave you for now. Hopefully this helped you figure out maybe a little bit more about why you do what you do. Please like and share this video so we can spread this educational program around the world. If you want to help me out, subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you want to help me out even more, go on my Patreon and become a patron. That's all for now. Until next time.